with the tongues of men and angels and have not love, I become just making noise. So, but is he being literal here? Is he really saying, I speak with tongues of men and angels? Is he being literal? I don't know that the angels or in heaven there's a different language spoken. I don't know that. I've never been to heaven. But whenever you read the Bible and an angel appears to somebody, they're having a conversation. This person is going back and forth with the angel, which should clearly tell you this angel is speaking a human language, right? Because this person understands the angel. I don't know that the angels can, they speak different languages up there, but the angels, when they do show up, they speak human languages. So Paul is not being literal. This is what you call a hyperbole. You know that word. A hyperbole means to exaggerate to make a point. Paul is just exaggerating. He says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, if I have not love, I'm just making noise. Remember I talked about 1 Corinthians 14, he was talking about if you don't understand and nobody interprets, then you're absent of love. That's all Paul's saying. He's not being literal here, saying he actually speaks in tongues of angels. Why would he need to in the first place? Angels don't need a gift either. Nope. And the last thing they say is that it's a prayer language. It's a prayer language. Matthew 6, verse 7. Remember I talked about tongues is for somebody else, it's not for you. It's not for your own personal benefit. Matthew 6, 7. Now this is a little funny. I know you guys gonna laugh at this. Jesus said, when you pray, use not vain repetitions, as the heathen do. So Jesus said, when you pray, he was teaching his disciples how to pray. He says, don't pray as the heathen does. Don't use vain repetitions. That's the word. Now, when you see that word, you probably think, don't say something over and over and over and over. It's not really what they're saying. The Greek word, vain repetitions is one Greek word. The Greek word is batalageo. Okay? That's two Greek words in one. Logos, which means word. Bata isn't a word. Bata is a onomatopoeia.
All right.
I think y'all remember that word before. You may have heard that. Amen. Onomatopoeia is the imitation of a sound. It's not a word though. For example, a plane goes, that's an imitation of what a plane does, but that's not a word. The wind goes. Jesus is saying when you pray, don't go as the heathen does. And that's exactly what tongues is. You're just making sounds. Jesus said, don't do that when you pray. Because who does it? The heathen. Don't do what the heathen does when you pray. Now the last thing I want to say is 1 Corinthians 13, verse 8. Tongues, it says that tongues shall cease. Right? The only question is when. When? 1 Corinthians 13 doesn't tell you when. It doesn't say when. Tongues shall cease on their own. Because it also says that prophecy and knowledge shall cease. But prophecy and knowledge shall cease when the perfect comes. Tongues shall just stop on their own. I believe that they have stopped. I'll tell you why. The Bible is not laid out in chronological order. That means it's not in order of time. The last book written is the Gospel of John. But John is way in the beginning of the New Testament. It's not in order of time. It's in order of grouping. Job actually lived before the flood. But Job is way in the middle of the Old Testament. It's not ordered. It's ordered in grouping. So you have the four Gospels. Then you have the letters. That's how it's ordered. So 1 Corinthians was a very early letter. It was one of the first ones written. So it deals with tongues. Why in the rest of the New Testament is tongues never spoken of again? Because it stopped. I believe it stopped with the apostles. When the apostles died, so did tongues. God always backed who he sent with miracles. Okay? All the way back to the Old Testament. Moses came and did a lot of miracles. God had to authenticate that person. If you're going to come in my name, they have to believe you. So God always backed them by giving them the ability to do miracles, so they would be believed. Same thing he did with the apostles. When he sent them out to the world, he gave them abilities to do things that would have people believe them. And tongues was just one of them. But when they died, who needed them anymore? So I believe they stopped with the apostles. When the apostles died, so did tongues. So I hope that was clear.
Yeah,
Well,
real good.
okay.